Barry, what do you think about the world's greatest philosopher, Nietzsche? Um, Nietzsche's famous quote is God is dead. Now, that makes him an uttermost fool to be pitied because that was the foundation fallacy that led to all of his other nonsense, fallacious reasoning. Now, could he have still been a great philosopher? Absolutely, because he was a very intelligent man. I read one of his books, but I only got halfway through because at the time I found it too offensive to continue and it disgusted me because it was so blasphemous against God. However, I could probably handle it or stomach it now that I've matured more in my faith in God and I'm not worried about he's going to talk me out of it or something. Plus, I can see the fallacies in his reasoning, whereas at the time, I wasn't capable intellectually of proving him wrong. But now it's pretty easy for me because I've grown in wisdom. So, saying that God is dead is a clear logical fallacy, making Nietzsche a fool. If God is an immortal being who's all knowing, omnipresent, capable, and as a spirit, as a all powerful source, I mean, this has got to be some being so vast that they would have figured out a way before they were able to create all of this to avoid their own death by some means, whether it's life support, whether it's whatever. I mean, for being high enough to create all life, that being's pretty much an expert on the topic of life. So, how can the ultimate expert on the topic of producing all life in existence be incompetent at maintaining his own life? This would be an impossibility which is self evident for a being that high in their expertise on the subject matter of sustaining and producing life. Not only that, but a being so expert at sustaining and producing both life and death cycles that complement one another. So even if God did die, and I don't claim he did, in the sense of the omnipresent, all powerful God, not in the sense of his son he sent to die in the human sense of shedding his life suit, wherein he never even fell asleep. He was instantly teleported to Hades, where he preached to the lost souls. So, anyways, that was not Nietzsche's point, anyways. Nietzsche's point was that God died and is dead as a state of being in perpetuity no more. And I'm saying that that's a foolish notion, that's an illogical fallacy, and I've proven it. But I'd like to add to my proof of it by completing my analysis. So, were God to have died, and ceased to exist for but a moment, he would have, as is his nature and design of everything, created a seed of himself anyways, along with everything else he creates. He's always creating seeds. These seeds die and then are spawned again. So if God died, he would merely respawn like in a video game. It would be instantaneous. He'd be at the spirit healer clicking accept, like on World of Warcraft. So the notion that God can be dead, remain dead, and cease to exist forever when he is a God that is capable of creating life, creating clones of himself, being omnipresent, and creating all of existence is just pure foolishness and is fallacy. So I respect Nietzsche as a great philosopher who made a fallacious conclusion, if not many. That's one I point out as one of the more noteworthy ones that led to a lot of his blasphemies and further conclusions rooted in the original fallacious one. Now, were the original fallacious conclusion true, then most of what his further conclusions were based on that original incorrect assumption rooted in fallacy. These other conclusions rooted in that were sound in reason. They were very clever, very accurate. But when you make conclusions rooted in a lie or rooted in a fallacy, then the conclusions that follow are hit and miss because they're rooted in something that wasn't true to begin with. This is why in court, when somebody is preparing or in the process of making an argument, they allow the ability for the opposing debation side or the opposing team to say, "Objection, Your Honor." And then the judge hears out the objection. If the objection proves that a statement made by the opposing team in the debate is in fact fallacious or dishonest or leading or whatever other reason, then the court judge acknowledges that what was just said needs to be struck from the record. It was inaccurate. So if I were the opposing debater against Nietzsche, I would have to say, "Objection." I would explain, as I just did, the fallacious conclusion that God is dead, and then all of his subsequent conclusions would need to be completely reevaluated by him for him to find profound truths, which his mind was capable of doing and is capable of doing and is doing even yet now. Their confusion and all this stuff is going to burn away, and they're going to come to an understanding of truth as this confusion is burned away. They're going to be in a place of darkness, so it's not a literal fire. It's just a place for them to think and time out away from everybody for them to get things straight in their head. Now they've now realized without a doubt God's real. So now that foundation is going to lead them into all the rest of the truth while they're sitting there with time to think. So it's in essence like if you lay in bed with your eyes closed thinking, that's what hell is. It's just a time where you're confused, you're frustrated, you know God's real, but you know that you need to have a time where you figure out what's going on, where did I go wrong, and then once you figure it out, you come to God, you say you're sorry for what you did. He's like, I already forgave you, you know that. And then you join him. And then you're together again. Nietzsche is going to wake up. He's going to see God. He's going to be judged. He's going to be in hell for a little while until he can figure things out. And I'm saying that I think he'll be somebody that's going to figure things out very quickly. Once he knows God exists, he'll be able to use that powerful mind, which he's already developed, to really understand what's going on, where he went wrong, and acknowledge all of his mistakes and just come to grips with reality and truth and everything. And then he's going to, by his own will, turn to God and say, "Truly, God, you are Lord. And in you is deliverance and strength, and in no other." And he's going to worship God and become one with God and join God in utopia. So that is my understanding, which I subscribe to, of what the Bible's teaching, and I can prove it. And I don't believe that any biblical scholar can disprove that, but I stand to be corrected because I don't claim to be infallible. That's my understanding, and I believe it's solid according to a thorough study and a lot of verification of the entirety of Scripture as I see it, as I understand it. So that's the fate of Nietzsche, according to my understanding of the Bible. That's where he's at now. That's where he went wrong. That's what he's going to experience, etc. And I'm sure that you can see that under my interpretation of the Bible, we have a very just God that's very loving and good. And it's a very pleasant situation for Nietzsche all throughout. The unpleasant part being the torment of realizing I missed it, what an idiot. Because Nietzsche, and all of his pride and thinking he's a great philosopher and writing all these books and just being so confident, and he probably had people try to tell him he's wrong, and he said, no, I got it figured out. He's going to be humbled when he realizes that all along he was wrong. And he's going to feel bad. So yes, hell has torment, because Nietzsche's going to be like, oh, you idiot, Nietzsche, what were you thinking? Like, why did I think God wasn't real? Where did I even get that idea to begin with? Or why did I think God died? Okay, maybe I should have thought this through a little more. So he's just going to be kicking himself is what that means. It's going to be a time of tears, and it's going to be a time of grinding his teeth, feeling like, oh, you idiot. And he's going to have some alone time to think, which I think he'll want, because he's going to be so overwhelmed by everything. He's going to want an alone time anyways. If you just realize you've been wrong your whole life, you're not going to want to be around people. You're going to be like, okay, this is embarrassing. I feel like an idiot. Let me just be by myself for a while to let this all sink in. So that's what hell is. It's a time to be by yourself a while you're crying, tormented, and grinding your teeth, trying to figure out where did I went wrong, and try to rethink everything and all the mistakes you made in your life psychologically through your reason and where all the fallacies were. So that's what hell is. It's just a time of deep contemplation. So for everybody that thinks God's not right, he burns people with a matchstick in hell, he's really cruel and everything, you can see that hell is going to be exactly where you're going to want to be when you die realizing you were wrong all along. You're going to want to literally be in a place for you just to be quiet, no distractions, and just think for a while. It's like if you just found out your wife was cheating on you, you're going to want to be like, okay, let me just go to my room and lay down and let this sink in, because I feel really overwhelmed right now. You're going to feel very overwhelmed when you face your maker and realize you denied him all along. So that's the whole point of hell, is just a place, just a quiet time, just like, okay, what in the world? What was I thinking? And that's very good of God to give you that quiet time so you don't feel so overwhelmed, because he's not wanting to torture you. He wants you to be tortured, as in be tortured by your own thoughts, but not be tortured as in he is a torturer that's a sadist. He's not a sadist.